Let's talk about school aids. You would represent a rural district.
Yeah.
Do you support DPI Superintendent Evers' fair funding plan because it has some additional benefits to rural schools like you'd represent?
I do support it. Senator Dale Schultz, our current state senator, is an advocate for that proposal and has helped develop it over the years. And it's not perfect, but what it does is it changes the funding formula in a way that benefits rural communities and rural school districts and makes the overall formula more fair. And my job is to advocate for our rural schools and rural communities. This is such an important topic. If I could just share with you, I was at a meeting with Senator Dale Schultz a couple weeks ago of CISA Region 3. We had superintendents from all over southwest Wisconsin, and one of the superintendents posed the question to the group, how many of you in your communities have had a referendum to raise revenues to pay for the cost of local public education? And nearly 2/3 of the superintendents raised their hands. So we need to reinvest in our local public schools and fix the funding formula because our rural schools are really struggling right now.
Well, I think in our area, rural schools have challenges. The principal challenge is declining enrollment. We need to have more flexibility for those school districts to work cooperatively, so they're not challenged. They're not competing with other school districts for resources. Additionally, transportation in our rural school districts is very costly. I grew up in that district. Mm-hmm. When I grew up, the school bus stopped at the Swartz's and picked up 5 kids. They stopped at the Johnsons and picked up 5 kids. Stopped at our house, picked up our farm, picked up 5 kids. They went to the Radels, picked up 5 kids. They had 4 stops. They had a half full school bus. Today, that same school bus can travel many miles before they pick up 20 students. So the transportation costs are higher with our rural school districts, and we need to recognize that and hopefully provide them with additional resources.
Is it time for a new school aid formula or just a plan that helps the rural districts more, sir?
The biggest issue we've got in our rural school districts, I think, is declining enrollment. If you look at the math, in terms of the biggest problem our school districts have, our small school districts have, is declining enrollment, and we've got a lot of school districts, and jobs are so key in rural Wisconsin, and we need to, I really need to be fighting for jobs in the rural areas, and because that's what's going to drive enrollment. And you don't hear the Veronas and the Middletons and the Wanakees of the world complaining about the school aid formula because their enrollment is flat or increasing, and so they're happy with it. Where there's really a pinch is where there's declining enrollment. So we need to take a good hard look at that. But again, it goes back to jobs. It goes back to jobs in rural communities. When we have jobs in our rural communities, our schools are full, growing, and much more vibrant. It's a heck of a lot easier to manage a growing school district than it is one with declining enrollment.
This summer, the governor also asked that Wisconsin withdraw from the Common Core standards. Your position?
Well, I would just reiterate that we should move forward with the Common Core. We should nonetheless, or at the same time, reevaluate it. We have already invested several years into this. We have invested a significant amount of money and a significant amount of time and training, and we need some sort of standards, but we can tweak them as we go along if we want. But right now it would be really disruptive to just pull out of the Common Core at this point, and it's probably mostly a political motive.
I wasn't happy with the whole process for how Common Core came about in Wisconsin. That was done largely without a whole lot of input from legislators. The average school board member, even teachers and educators, I don't think really fully understood what Common Core even meant. So this whole controversy is happening today because it didn't happen 4 years ago when we adopted Common Core. Now, my position on Common Core, we've got a lot of our school districts have invested in teacher training, in implementation of math and English language arts. with Common Core to pull out the rug from those programs right now, I don't think is fair to those school districts. So, whether we continue down the road of Common Core, I think that's a subject for debate. But I listen to my school district administrators and teachers, and again, they've invested a lot of money, a lot of resources in the last few years, especially in math and language arts, and we need to be sensitive to their investment, and I wouldn't want to be pulling the rug out, I don't think, at this point on those two areas.